Hello everyone, welcome to Finance Professor. We are dedicated to supporting you with getting the financial education you need to manage and invest your money wisely. Today, we are going to talk about a very well-known book, but despite its enormous popularity, Rich Dad, Poor Dad is still unfamiliar to many people, which is why we made this video to give you guys an overview of this best-selling book by Robert Kiyosaki. So, if that sounds interesting to you, click that like button and share this video and let's dive in. The story of Robert Kiyosaki, the book's author, and his two fathers, his real father, known as the Poor Dad, and the father of his best friend, known as the Rich Dad, and how each man influenced his views on money and investing is told in Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Robert Kiyosaki is a well-known American investor, entrepreneur, author, motivational speaker, and financial commentator who is thought to be worth $100 million. Want to know something interesting? He didn't come from a wealthy family when he was growing up. In fact, his family struggled with money frequently, much like the majority of people who work but lack the best financial education. So, how did Robert become wealthy today? Let's take a look at what he explains in his best-selling book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. But before we move on further, why don't you please subscribe to this channel and hit the bell notification button so you get the latest update on our videos. Thank you, and let's continue. If you were to quit your job, how long could you survive on your remaining savings? I just ask you to define what wealth is. Well, here's the story of Robert Kiyosaki. Robert Kiyosaki was born in Hilo, Hawaii in April 1947. In 1957, at age 9 years old, little Robert was attending the same public school where the rich people sent their children, for his town had lots of doctors, business owners, and bankers. Robert saw that the rich kids would separate themselves from him, for his family wasn't able to afford the newest collection of toys and bikes like them. So one day Robert asked his father, who had a PhD and completed multiple universities with excellent degrees, "Dad, can you tell me how to get rich?" Unfortunately, his dad didn't know the right answer because he was not a rich man himself. So he responded with, "Well, use your head, son. Stay in school, get good grades so you could find a safe and secure job." His real dad is what he'll be referred to as Poor Dad. He wasn't poor at this time. In fact, he was making lots of money. But in the end, this man's financial life takes a turn for the worse. Now, little Robert has a friend named Mike, in which Mike's father would be referred as Rich Dad, who started mentoring Robert and his son Mike about how to really become rich. During this time, Rich Dad wasn't really rich yet, but soon became one of the wealthiest men in Hawaii. So then, what did Rich Dad teach Robert? Rich Dad poured a strong financial foundation into this kid's minds of many important principles. To start, the first lesson you need to know is you must know the difference between an asset and a liability, and that you need to buy assets. If you want to be rich, this is all you really need to know and understand the most. You see, the rich acquire assets, whereas the poor and middle class acquire liabilities, which they sometimes mistake for assets. Simply not understanding the difference between an asset and a liability is the main reason people struggle financially. An asset is something that puts money in my pocket. A liability is something that takes money out of my pocket. For instance, let's try the cash flow pattern of a normal individual. This individual earns his income from a job, and as soon as he gets paid, spends his money before he even receives it. In other words, this individual keeps buying things that never bring in money. He has no assets, which is unfortunate, but he does have liabilities that constantly take money out of his pocket because of things like mortgages, taxes, credit cards, loans, and believe it or not, a house. Now, let's see how the cash flow pattern works for the rich. Instead of trying to increase their income from their regular job, which is currently their only source of income, they buy and own assets that generate passive income for them. They choose passive income over active income. By the way, Passive income operates in the opposite way that active income does, in that you don't have to work to receive money from it. Examples of assets are businesses that don't require your presence, like stocks, bonds, mutual funds, income-generating real estate, royalties, notes, and anything else that has value and generates income. As was previously mentioned, poor dad was earning a respectable income from his job, but he was never able to invest because his expenses always seemed to exceed his income. Due to the unfortunate fact that assets are less than liabilities and income equals expenses, dad's liabilities, such as his mortgage and credit card debt, grew over time, increasing his debt even after he passed away. Rich dad, on the other hand, has an income that exceeds his expenses because his assets are greater than his liabilities, as a result of a life dedicated to investing and minimizing liabilities. The rich are essentially getting richer for this reason. Their assets produce more income than they need to pay their bills, with the remaining money being reinvested into the asset column. The income increases as the asset column does, and vice versa. Both dads work hard, but they have different attitudes and viewpoints. One dad advised to study hard so you can find a good company to work for. The other dad also advised to study hard to find a good company to buy. According to one dad, having kids is the reason he isn't rich, while to the other dad, having kids is the reason that he must be rich. One dad advised playing it safe and avoiding risk when it comes to money. The other dad advised learning how to manage your risk. "I can't afford that," one dad said. "How am I going to afford that?" the other one said. Although both men had great respect for education and learning, they had different opinions on what they believed to be the most important to learn. Robert discovered from his rich dad that people's lives are actually controlled by two emotions, fear and greed, that keep you in a cycle of getting up, going to work, and paying your bills. Get up, pay your bills, and go to work. They get caught in the cycle of working and making money, hoping that the fear of not having money will pass. They emotionally respond rather than rationally responding to their fear. A second emotion that drives people to work for money is desire, which some people refer to as greed. They desire money for the happiness they believe it could provide. However, the happiness that money brings is frequently fleeting and soon requires more money for more happiness, more pleasure, more comfort, and more security. You see, the same fear and desire are what drive many people to be so fervent about going to school for a better chance at a high-paying job. But don't give up hope. Even though they are important, a job and education won't completely eliminate that fear. You must learn the power of money and overcome your fear of it to overcome that anxiety. Unfortunately, most schools don't teach about this. And if you don't learn it, you'll end up a slave to money. A lack of knowledge about money can result in extreme greed and fear, which can lead you into life's biggest trap of non-stop work. Rich Dad advised learning to use your emotions to think rather than thinking from your emotions. I need to find a new job, for instance, as an example of emotional thinking. I should get paid more. I want this position because it is stable, instead of logically asking myself, is there something I'm missing here? This is the world as it is for us. For the majority of people, your profession is what generates your income. For the rich, your asset is your income. Apply these lessons to your life, because if I were to ask you to define wealth, how long would you be able to live if you stopped working today? You might laugh at me and say, I no longer work for money. Instead, money works for me. Thank you guys for watching this video. We hope you enjoyed it and learned something from it. Make sure to give it a thumbs up and share it with a friend. Also, please subscribe to our channel, The Finance Professor, if you haven't already, and click the bell notification button to receive updates on our next finance-related videos. Till then, bye!